Today we have two different readings with widows. The first widow here in the book of Kings is preparing her final meal. She has just a little bit of flour and a little bit of oil, and that's it. And she's gathering some sticks to figure out how to get a fire so she can make the last bread that she's ever going to eat. Elijah comes along and says, "Give me something to eat." She's like, "I got nothing. I'm about ready to feed my son and myself, and this is our final meal." Elijah says, "Trust in God. He'll provide." So she offers him some of her last meal. And God provides. And all three are able to survive for a year during that drought. The gospel. We have a widow here as well. It's actually the widow is mentioned twice. The priests, the synagogue, devour the houses of widows. As a pretext, we say lengthy prayers, lengthy homilies. This poor widow comes along and puts two small coins into the treasury, into the basket when it comes along, with a couple of pennies, just a couple of cents. And all these other people were putting in these large sums. And Jesus says, look, she's given much, much more than all these other people. Because out of her poverty, she contributed all that she had, her whole livelihood. A few weeks ago, we had a reading of the young rich man. The young rich man comes up to Jesus and says, "Jesus, how do I get eternal life?" Jesus says, "Follow the 10 Commandments." "I do that. Am I in?" Jesus says one more thing. "Sell all your possessions and give it to the poor. And then come follow me." And he went away sad. The widows and this young rich man have something in common. God is asking them for something, and something really big. A little piece of your last meal, your whole livelihood, all of your possessions. Seems extreme, seems drastic. But being a Christian is a drastic thing. A drastic encounter with Christ. To be able to understand that Christ loves us so much that He will provide for us. This week is also the week of National Vocations Awareness Week, where we need to get aware that we need more priests and religious in our church to help young people discern that. I'll tell you, when I was younger and when I was discerning this, I read over that young rich man. I kind of looked at what God was asking me, and I wanted to negotiate, but I did not want to walk away sad like that young man. But that's about what I was wanting to do. Lord, you're asking a lot. You're asking me to give up what? My career? My house? My girlfriend? My puppy? you so much. What is God asking you to forego? What is blocking you from this eternal life? What's the center of your life when it's not Jesus? When you're not here? Is it your possessions? Is it your family? Family is much more important than Jesus. You don't hear that in the gospel. What is it? That God might be asking you to give up, to render over to Him. Maybe it's a sin. Maybe it's the guilt of a way past sin. What is God asking you to give up so that you can have Christ as the center of your life? When these readings come up, when this, obviously this reading of this widow putting in 2 pennies into the basket, my finance council wants me to talk about tithing, and how you can improve that, how we can improve that in the parish, or we're talking about the upcoming capital campaign. But really, that's not what this is all about. I guess I just mentioned that. So there you go, finance council. I did my job. It's also about an attitude of how we look at why we give to the church, to the poor, to the needy. Obviously, we have 2 widows here. They gave us a great example, but also have 2 couples, 2 married couples that I've encountered over the years of my priesthood. The first one gave a very large donation to St. Joseph's recently. And the husband looks at me and says, "Father, I need you to know," referring back to this gospel story, "this is not the widow's mite. I'm giving out of my surplus." He made it very clear that God has been good to me. And He's provided me with so much. And I need to give back to this community. I need to give back to God. Not only has He helped us at St. Joseph's, but He helps many different organizations, mostly Catholic organizations, throughout the state, throughout the nation. Because He wants to give back, because all that He has came from God. The other couple I talked to a few years ago, and it was a very interesting conversation because they were talking about when they first got married and how their faith life was, and they really wanted to help out the church. Being newly married, and they were married right out of high school, basically. Their paychecks were not very big. And when they got married, they decided right then and there that they were going to support the church 10%. Every paycheck, we're going to give 10%. Because we need to give back to God. These are our first fruits. These are our first fruits. We want to give back to God. And as they started their life together, as they were trying to make that rent payment, as they were trying to make that car payment, as they were trying to save up money for a down payment on a house, as they were struggling, and the children started to come, and they're struggling with their bills, and both of them basically said, yeah, there's some days that I didn't want to write that check to the church, and some days that she didn't want to write that check, and we suffered over it, but we went back to that original promise. We're going to give our first fruits back to God. That's like 30, 35 years ago. And they built up their business. And as their business grew and grew and grew, then it didn't become about how can we afford our lifestyle? How can we afford a house? It became, well, does the church really need this much money? This is a lot. 10% of a lot is a lot. They went back to, I want to give my first fruits back to God. Everything I have is God's. That's the lesson of the two widows. The first widow, I have one meal left, and I'll share it. The widow in the gospel, I have 2 pennies. They're not mine, they're God's. What is God asking of us? Pray over that. Pray over what God is asking you. Like he asked that young rich man, sell everything, give to the poor, then follow me. He asked for everything from that young rich man. He asked everything from these widows. He did not ask everything from these 2 couples that I just spoke about, but he asked from something from them. And really, it comes down to what's the center of your life. Is it Jesus? Is it God? Take back and to reflect upon the sacrifices that God asks us to have, to do for our families, for our church. Reflect upon what that truly is for you, and have that negotiation with God. And here's the thing. It's a continual negotiation. Even after I got into the seminary, even after I became a priest, I still go back to that and say, now God, what are you asking me to give up now? Haven't I given everything? No, we haven't given everything yet. What is it for you that he's asking you to give up this day, this hour, to make the Eucharist, to make Jesus the center